Hey, what's up everybody? I got another video for you this week. This week we're working on these Cyclops visors from the original X-Men animated series. It's all made out of 5mm EVA foam and it came out pretty good. So I'll show you how to get to it.
Alright, what's up everybody? So in this video, like I said, we'll be working on the Cyclops Visor from the original animated series. This is a build that came together because my buddy Will suggested it. I was looking for some ideas and he suggested this, which is funny because this is not something that I would have ever thought about doing on my own. Cyclops was not one of my most favorite characters, so I probably never would have made this if it wasn't for Will. So shout out to Will for the suggestion, and I'm actually really happy with the way this came out. So first things first, just putting the template on the 5mm EVA foam and just cutting all of the parts and pieces out. In the pattern, I put the shape that you'll need for the inside piece. It's also just a strip that you can cut out to your own thickness, however you want. I didn't go super thick with mine. Now, when you go to glue this, I start in the corner, and then I kind of compress the visor itself and then glue to it, and what that does is it stretches the flat piece, the visor piece, it stretches it into a circle, and then when you glue the wall piece on there, it actually will conform to that shape without heat treating it. It'll curve it automatically, because you're basically like putting tension on it. And now the bottom piece I put on kind of the same way, just go around the edges, and then I just follow the shape of the nose. These don't have to be perfect, like always. You hit it with the rotary tool after just to get everything flush, but the closer the better, saves you a lot of time in sanding. So now with the earpieces, this part is marked in the template, the walls for the earpieces. You just put those all the way around the ear. And there'll be some excess, and you just cut that off, and then just glue it in there. I use a little bit of super glue to glue it together. So now these are the top detail pieces for the ear. They're a little bit smaller. They go in the middle on the top of the ear base. And then the same thing with the top X pieces. You just cut the circle out. You can see my technique for cutting out circles in foam. I like to hold, and then instead of trying to cut with my hand the entire circle, I kind of try to keep my blade stationary, and then I pull the foam around the blade almost. I get a lot better circular cut that way. Now this, I'm just going slow, just trying not to overcut or undercut, just trying to get all the corners cut properly without leaving cut lines and stuff. So you just go slow, You work towards the corner, and then you stop, and then you start at the corner and go towards the outside. So basically what I'm doing is I'm just showing you one side, but obviously you do this for both pieces, both sides, all that kind of stuff. You just mirror it on the other side. Now I take that circle, the detail circle, and I put that in the center of the base, and I mark that with a pen so I know exactly where I want to glue that. Now the base is beveled, the corners are beveled, so all I'm doing is I'm just using my pen and I'm just spinning the circle around, just getting a good level line where I want the bevel to be. And then I use my X-Acto knife and I cut the bevel in first, just so I don't have to sand through all that material. The more material that you cut off is obviously it's a lot less that you sand, less dust. So I cut from my bevel line that I drew to the glue line, right where that 5mm glue's on top of that side detail piece. That's where I'm cutting to. I'm just cutting a 45 in there. Then I go back through with the Dremel, just smooth it out, round it out, try to get it to look as nice as possible. It's never gonna be perfect, but you can get it pretty close to the point where you can't really tell visually by looking at it. Okay, so now I'm just taking some super glue, putting that around the line I marked on the ear base for that first circle. This super glue works really good. You can contact cement this. Normally I would, but the smaller details are a little bit harder to brush on, and also you will see the glue underneath your paint, so I try not to use it in areas like this where there'd be over glue. So then I just do the same thing with the X circle detail on top. Put a little bit of glue on that, and then try not to glue it to yourself, and then glue it to the center on the inside of that top circle. And it creates like a layer line. So now I take that whole earpiece and I line the corners of the circle up to the corners of the face shield, and I mark on the face shield where that circle is, and I mark on the back of the earpiece where the ear frame, the visor meets up to it. Now I'm taking the visor and marking the thickness of that visor on this sheet of EVA foam. This is still 5mm EVA foam. And I cut a strip of that out. This will fill in the gap on the back. So you can see where I have my markings, so I know exactly where the visor is when I put the earpiece back on. And all I'm doing is the same thing I did with just the wall of the earpiece the first time. I'm just putting this all the way around on the side there until I get to my other marking. So now I'm at the marking, and I just use my blade and I just trim it. I always like to cut pieces longer than they need to be, just because I'd rather trim it than be short, obviously. So now you can see where that piece is. It leaves that gap, and that gap is right where your visor goes. So I put glue on that and on the side. I put it on the bottom of that piece there, and then I put it on the side of the piece here. Then I put it on the side of the visor, just on the corners. And then I put it on the front of the visor where my pen marking is. That's where I marked the ear piece to go originally. I'm just using a piece of EVA foam here and just using that to glue with, so I'm not wasting another brush. Not that they're expensive, but this is just quick and easy, cheap way to do it. You're gonna have plenty of scrap EVA, so just use it. So now when I'm gluing this, I start with the corner. I glue the corner flush to the circle. And then I will move it and I will glue the bottom to the corner. And now that those are in place, I know that the circle will line up to where it needs to go. And now I push that together and glue it together permanently. So now I'm using this technique. This is a soldering iron with a I don't know what kind of bit it is. It looks kind of like a leaf. And these side details on the visor, I don't know what they are. They're just like a recessed detail. So I am just using this heat gun and just lightly going along my marking here. And what it's doing is it's melting. It's melting the foam. Should always test this out on a piece of scrap foam before you start. It's really easy to do too much, and it will burn wider and deeper than you expect. So just test it out first to just get the hang of it. Also, obviously, the fumes from the foam are very toxic, so wear a mask or have a fan going for sure. And obviously the soldering iron is pretty hot, so just be careful with that. It's kind of hard to see what I'm doing with the white foam, but once I paint it, you'll be able to see that recessed detail a lot better. So now this is some 2-in-1 primer. It's a filler and it's sandable. This is nice because you can paint it on, and then you can sand it smooth. It's you can find it in the automotive section of like Walmart or Home Depot or Ace. It's technically for automotive stuff, so you can prime and sand. The visor itself, I forgot to mention, it does have 3 layers of Plasti Dip, or not Plasti Dip. It has 3 layers of Mod Podge, which I've been using in all my videos so far. So now this is some gloss Sun Yellow by Rust-Oleum. Just giving that a light dusting. Yellow is pretty translucent, so it needs a couple coats of that. It's easy to want to overpaint on your first attempt, but you can ruin it that way. Now this is a plastic bottle. I forget what it's from. Cutting off the top and bottom, and then cutting it down the middle. What I'm doing is I'm using the plastic from that for the eye slot. You can see I'm putting it on there and I'm marking where it needs to be. Then I just take my scissors and I cut out that shape. Now I'm sanding the inside of that plastic with a 120 grit sandpaper. What that does is it'll, what do you call it? It would refract the light a lot better if you put lights in it. I ended up not putting lights in it. I couldn't get them to not glow in my eyes, and most of the light shines down underneath the visor. It just didn't look good. So for this video I don't put lights in it, but it still looks really good. This is just some red transparent paper. You can find this online. I think I bought it on Amazon a long time ago when I was making lightsabers. I would put it inside the blade with a white light and it reflects the red. It's pretty cheap stuff. So I put tape on that, and then I put it in place here to get a good idea of where exactly I want it to be. I messed with this for a little bit longer than I would have liked or expected to. It's always the small stuff that end up taking you the longest. So I cut that tape down a little bit more, and I put the top on first. I don't know if I mentioned it, but I glued the visor in on the. I cut the visor big enough where I can glue around, so you won't see the glue on the plastic. So now that the top is glued in on this red piece here, you can see where it needs to be trimmed. So I just trim it carefully, peel that off. Then I go around the bottom, and I just use tape. And that, the masking tape that I used worked really good for gluing it on or sticking it on. I didn't have to use any glue on that. I probably would put some hot glue around it just to be safe. Now I'm moving on to the weathering, so you can see how quick and easy of a build this is. It's just a couple simple shapes. It's basically a square and some circles, and so I'm just using some dark brown paint, watered down, and I'm just trying to get that in all of the areas that would be hard to clean. I think of all people from the X-Men, I think Cyclops would probably be one of the guys that would be fairly meticulous about his equipment and stuff. I feel like he would clean his stuff way more regularly than anybody else on the team. So all I'm doing really is I'm just adding it into the creases and the very inside of the X. It would be dirty, and it would be hard to clean out from all the grooves and stuff. And underneath the bridge of the nose, where like sweat and stuff would be, just put it on there. It's not a lot of weathering, but it just adds that little bit of realism to it. It's after something comes out of the factory or something's brand new, it never stays new. It's always dirty or it's weathered. So I try to just emulate that a little bit. It's easy to overdo, but so now I'm taking a smaller brush and I'm just putting a little bit more in the cracks and crevices around that circle, and I put a little bit more in the X. I just let it kind of pool up on the bottom. Alright, and that is it. That is the Cyclops Visor from the original animated series. So thanks for watching, everybody. Catch you next time.